All right, so welcome back. We are here to discuss our thoughts on the conclusion, season 2 of Arcane. I'm OC.
I'm Crystal.
I'm Chuku.
Scott.
And this is Imagine Blue. All right,
Dang,
so
it's been a while.
It's been a long time.
It's been a bit of time, especially
It's been
since
a
we've
long
moved
time.
here. But yeah, so season 2 has come. It's been a long time coming, especially I think season 1 was 3 years ago.
2 years.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
Feels like 5. But we finally got it. Season 1 has come. Season 2 has come.
Yeah.
What'd you guys
and
think?
Gone. So yeah, how do you guys feel about it? Overall thoughts.
I guess I'll start since I'm talking.
Jump right in.
I'll be honest with you. I'm kind of disappointed with this season. I felt that, and this is one of those what I call a high quality problem, where it's like, it's not that this is a bad season at all. Like, in terms of my experience, I enjoyed it. There was a lot of amazing scenes. There are scenes that even made me tear up. So it's not like it's a bad experience. But then when you compare it to season 1, I felt like there was so many moments where it just was hit or miss. There were things that were predictable for me. There was things that were repetitive. There were things that were rushed. And I really wish, had they had a season 3, a lot of this stuff could be aired out. But because they had a season 2, it just felt like, it was just kind of. So that's my honest opinions of it.
The main problem was that it was too fast.
Yeah.
That especially in the last act. The first episode was fine. I actually made like a small video about this, just like expressing my own issues, and that was the main thing. Was the last 2 episodes felt way too rushed. There was too many things that happened. But every other act, I didn't mind that much. Actually, I enjoyed it like a lot.
Yeah, I think the two of you kind of summed up, I feel like, the general view of like this last season, that a lot of people are saying it was rushed. So it's like, we can't all be wrong. Like, it was rushed. I think there's like,
Yeah, I think for sure it was rushed.
I think it's too, like you said, it's a high quality problem. Like, the first season was so good. People made connections with these characters. They saw themselves in these characters. They saw the relationships between certain characters and attached to that. And I think another season would have helped kind of add some of that really good stuff that we love about the first season, like interactions between certain characters that like barely talked in this new season, and full fleshing out of certain like subplots and things that didn't get the treatment that it deserved. That said, it's still a very enjoyable season. Like, I mean, Fortiche was still like running around animating some like the coolest stuff I've ever seen, right? And for context too, Ozzy and I were actually able to go to like an event at the Shrine where we were able to watch like the last 3 episodes on the big screen. And I think we were like kind of riding on the high of that as soon as we were done with those last 3 episodes. But even then, there were some like eyebrow raising decisions where I was like, everyone's like cheering and like loving life and like crying over everything, but still there were some things where I'm like, oh, like that was a choice. Or like certain characters where I was like, oh, she was assassinated, she was character assassinated, no.
Which ones? Let's get into specifics. We're gonna get into spoilers.
Yeah.
Sure. I think one big one for me, because I bought some merch. I bought like Vi's toy that was stuck in the poles, and I think Vi specifically, there was like a lot of stuff that I felt was like, I don't know, they treated her with such care in like the first season, right? And her relationship with Powder Jinx, right, was a huge focal point of the series. And no disrespect to like other parts of the story, like Victor and Jace's ending or anything like that. I think that was beautifully animated. I loved their conclusion. But I think like stuff between Vi and Jinx Powder was definitely sidelined. I think there was like decisions near the end where like Vi finally being able to like grieve, and then paying for it, in that final moment where we lost Jinx, quote unquote, because we don't know. They kind of implied like she could be alive, but it wasn't anything. It was very vague.
I hope she's alive. I feel like that's a sad way to go.
It felt like she didn't do a lot either in like the final battle, and like she's one of the coolest. Like, her design was great this season. She looks so cool, and like everyone loves her in the games too, with like with the fat hands. But like and it just felt a little underwhelming, like her conclusion, even though she got to we got to canonize like a fan favorite ship, you know, between her and Kate, it still felt like it was lacking to me.
Yeah.
Because like Vi too was like, she was not one of my favorite characters, but leading up into this new season, I was starting to like really love her and like her story. Like she was starting to become one of my favorites. So I was a little disappointed with her conclusion.
Yeah, to jump in on that, because there was even part 2, right? There's a part when finally Vi and Jinx come together, right?
Yeah.
And they're walking with that kid.
kinda
And the way they
cool.
came in, it just seemed like, we're just there. Forget the fact that we had this like beef,
Yeah.
tension, all this
Yeah.
animosity from
That's
last time
what-
we're there, but they're just there together, and it's just like,
That's what I was gonna mention. Like when you're talking about the way that it kind of felt like it was rushed, I felt that more so in the second arc, like the second act, where it felt like there were some of these relationships that were kind of just mended, and it felt like it just all happened so quickly. And I'm like, are these people still beefing? Or is that for, like, what we had
we're
in
just
season
cool.
1? And so it felt like we're kind of cool pretty quickly. I felt that more so in the middle act. I didn't necessarily feel it as much in the third act, but I guess that's just subjective. But yeah, it did feel rushed, I think, and I do agree that if it had another season, it probably would have improved the overall quality of how we felt with this season.
Yeah.
I agree with that, but I think it's kind of believable. Like anyone who's had siblings, the way that you fight and then like you're okay again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard
But I
people
think-
defend it that way.
I think it's
It's
like
valid.
it would have been like it felt okay. So I know that there was a time jump,
yeah.
but it wasn't also very clear how much time had passed.
Right.
Yeah.
And I
When,
think
she
that-
was like fighting in the.
Yeah.
and
It
I
didn't
think that
seem like very long
contributed.
because
And-
Isha's really little and she like kind of barely
Stayed really
grew.
little.
Like she
Yeah.
barely grew.
And then
Yeah.
the way it was presented, I just think the way it was presented, I feel like there should have been an acknowledgement, because it was just like, okay, they're walking down, they're looking for my God, I'm trying to remember the beast thing. Or they're trying to
Warwick.
Warwick.
look for Warwick. They're looking for Warwick, and then you
Vander.
just Vander actually, it's
Vander
Vander
Warwick.
actually, yeah,
Vander
Vander.
Warwick.
They're looking for Vander, and then it's just like you see them together, and they just look at each other, and they're just going in, and there's no like, yo, whatever. They just go in and
Yeah.
they're just talking. I'm like,
And that's the thing too, like even though the reconciliation was really quick, like a lot of people loved it, and I think it would have been fine if we had more time to
Yeah.
sit with it and for it to settle. But because the pacing was so fast and they had to move into like the next movement with like Victor's arc, like we couldn't even really like have that too, because the next traumatic thing happened. So it's like then we had to deal with that, and it was like a lot to process. I
But
think.
I want to clarify though for Chuku, like, how about the scene when they first talked in Vi's room, like where Vi was like choking her out, you know?
was that in
What about
season,
that?
was that in part 1? If I'm correct,
I think that was part 2, where
It's when they first saw each other.
yeah, when they first saw each other again, because Jinx was like, we gotta help Vander, and Vi didn't believe her. So that happened, you know. They had a fight beforehand before they went into the caves.
Yeah, they had like
So it
little,
wasn't as if they instantly became better.
but it was just like little Looney Tune squabbles. Like it was just like they were just like knocking
That's
each other
fair.
upside the
That's
head,
fair.
you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
normal
yeah.
sibling stuff.
But they're siblings, so like
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like also people die.
Yeah. We can.
It's like
That's fair. We can move on to other things.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
How much does Vi care that those certain people die?
Well, okay. So here's the thing. One
No,
of the
genuine question.
if I'm like getting brought back to like my full thoughts on like season 1 with Arcane, and one of my only complaints with that season was feeling like there was an overemphasis on the relationship between Vi and Kate versus Vi and Powder, whereas like I felt like that the character kind of was too willing to throw away her relationship with her sister for this like rando girl that just like came out of nowhere.
Ooh, wait. Sorry, I'm confused about that. When you mean by they, like she felt like,
Like she was prioritizing her relationship with this new girl over her sister.
How so? Like what actions?
I would have to like rewatch all of that
in season
like,
1?
Yeah,
I
in
don't
season
one, yeah.
Because I don't remember it being like that. Because
Yeah.
if I recall, I think it was just like, remember, she was Powder at that point was already, or not Powder. Yeah. Well, yeah, Powder. Because I
was
Jinx, Powder Jinx,
Yeah.
are the same name. At that point, she was already gone with Silco.
with Silco.
So at that
No,
point,
no,
I don't think
but
she
like
was.
But that's the thing. It's like Vi was away the whole time.
Yeah.
And so she didn't see that transition.
She didn't.
Of Powder into Jinx.
Yeah.
So it seems like going from like this is your sibling, like this is your sister, like it felt to me like this, and this is one of my only complaints about that season. It's like it felt to me that she was a bit too willing to now turn on her sister. In season 1,
I don't know. I feel like it's
but
very
like
believable.
I only say that to say I'm not trying to like
That's fair.
go over.
I don't think
season
okay.
1,
I will
but-
just say I don't think it's definitively like she was like on Kate's side over Powder Jinx.
Yeah.
Because Vi was torn. Like there was always a little thread of her thinking that she could save Powder until the very, very end, and then everyone paid for it. That's what it was all about.
Okay.
And so that said, I kind of want to circle back to, because you're talking about like how her relationship is with Jinx when they reconcile. How do you feel about Vi's conclusion then about like that
I don't like
relationship? Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right, we're on the same page. Just checking.
Are you kidding? Like that ending was so like what the heck? Like
Oh man.
they didn't even really have like a true conclusion in that story, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And just Vi looked pretty bad, y'all, because you can say like, say they didn't have they didn't show where they implied Jinx could live. They made it pretty much like her death Vi's fault. Like it looked really ridiculous to me. They washed my goat, y'all. Like she was so washed. She was cooked. So yeah.
But I do feel like they tried to make the story good with Vander reappearing, and I did find it very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was invested
fine.
for sure.
Yeah.
But
Same.
I feel like they killed Vander too quickly.
Yeah.
I think that was a big
It's just a
problem.
matter of the timing, the pacing, and the rushed nature of it.
Yeah. Like Jace killing Victor on paper, it seems so cool and interesting. Like, why did he do that? Like, that was definitely a big question in my head after that happened. But he didn't kill him. He didn't kill him.
It was a cool moment, but in the context of where we were in the story, it like just ended
was
so
so
many
random.
things.
Exactly. It transitioned us to too many things that we weren't really ready for. We wanted to sit with the stuff that happened more.
Yeah, that's why it's like I do think like Jason Victor's part, like their story and like their relationship with like Hex Tech and the Hex Core was like the best part. But then that means like a lot of other stuff fell by the wayside.
Yeah, exactly. And at some point, I almost forgot about it until they brought it up. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot these two were together. At some point, they kind of overshun it for other stuff, but that's another.
A lot
thing.
of stuff was.
Yeah, another thing. Echo's another thing that they just out of nowhere. Oh yeah, Echo's here. And he's in a different timeline, and then now he has the ability to time travel.
And it's cool stuff too that we don't want glossed over. Like there's cool, like even like Mel Medarda and Bessa Medarda, like all of like their connections. So like the Black Rose and Noxians, like there's a lot of stuff that I'm like kind of confused about still, and like I'm like, where did that leave off? Like
I think the Black Rose thing is set up for like another thing to happen in the future.
And mostly everything is,
But I still feel like they didn't do it well enough to
for sure
like justify including it that much in the and also Mel kind of just left, got captured, got powers, came back. It just seemed a little too convenient and too fast.
It's a little contrived. Yeah.
To go back on the whole Echo in the other universe, did anybody get to what's it called, Across the Spyverse vibes when you saw him sitting next to Powder?
A lot of parallels were drawn that I saw on Twitter. Yeah.
I don't know. I still feel like as cool as it was for them to learn how to do the whole time travel, I felt like it was kind of convenient for him. But I think it also has to do with the fact that it was pasted really quickly. I think that could be also.
You never want time travel to be convenient because it's like, because then it'll also kind of end up being really convoluted and confusing if they don't pull it off right.
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of confusing how it worked.
It is.
It seemed like whenever he used his device and it went back after 4 seconds, everything around him, not him, everything around him got destroyed. Like Heimerdinger, how do you say
Heimerdinger.
Heimerdinger died, right?
Yeah, Heimerdinger.
And he was like, just trust me, it's 4 seconds, right?
Yeah.
But then afterwards, at the very end, he went way past 4 seconds. And I guess it started destroying everything around him, which is what he wanted. But it doesn't hurt him. So that's like such a useful tool.
Yeah.
He's kind of the goat, actually.
He got rid of it immediately afterwards.
Yeah,
That's just the Echo effect.
Yeah.
I still liked his story and character and everything.
Yeah.
It was cool.
Yeah,
enjoyable.
a lot of people were like, "Oh, he deserved more," and they felt like a lot of his story like hinged on his relationship with Jinx too much. Also, Jinx Powder, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like a little bit of nitpicking, but I feel like it's all valid. You know, everyone
Yeah.
has their favorite, and everyone has, you know, a different point of view about how like everyone's
Yeah,
conclusion
because
was.
I do think Arcane is like a series where characters and their relationships to each other
Yeah.
is like a very strong
Yeah.
point of the show.
Mhm.
And for Echo, he doesn't have too many connections other than Heimerdinger, who died,
Mm-hmm.
and then and Jinx, I guess.
Not too much. Oh, bless you. Not too much on like the behind the scenes things, but I saw somewhere online that there was a whole writer's room for the first season.
Mhm.
And this last season, it was reduced to 3 people.
Mm.
So I feel like that could be make a huge effect on things. Because
That makes
imagine every
sense.
character had their own writer. I would imagine it was
Sure.
like that.
That's fair.
And if there's only 3 writers,
Yeah.
like for this last season, like you can kind of like feel
Yeah,
that.
the writer who was in charge of Vi definitely got kicked out.
They're just like not there anymore.
I'm just kidding. I have no idea. But
No, but yeah, I can see that if that's really what happened.
interesting.
I wonder if they had a different like directors too, because I just feel like the fights, besides like the final fight, were a little bit weaker in the sense where they would always do this slow-mo thing with music in the background, which for me, the first season, I really love how the fights were done. They were just well animated, they
Yeah.
were very creative, but it just was so repetitive for me, and it was just kind of like,
You're right. That did become a meme. Like they put a lot of emphasis on the music, which was really good, but a lot of the music had like lyrics that were very
Exactly.
like on the nose, and they like kind of played that up a little bit too much. Just from
Yeah. every moment,
yeah.
just music
Yeah.
montages. Like at some point, I was like, is
It
this a
really
music
did
video?
feel like that sometimes. I think it was because it's like it was a really good soundtrack, and they
Yeah.
wanted to
Yeah.
emphasize that, but then
They
it
put a
means
lot into
Yeah,
them.
they
less
put a lot
choreo,
into
more
it.
music.
They should watch Across the Spider-Verse, you know? I know Across the Spider-Verse came out before they were finishing this, but it's like the way they did the music there
Yeah.
and how it integrates.
Because Across the Spider-Verse came out. I mean, the first one came out before Arcane season 1, right?
No. Oh, you mean Into Spider-Verse? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
I mean, everything is an echo of that film.
So
Like that, the effect of Into the Spider-Verse echoed throughout all of animation.
yeah,
So, I mean, that's the blueprint.
that's the blueprint.
It's unfair to compare to that.
I know. I'm just playing around. Just basically saying. But even then, I feel like this season obviously was finished before they see Across the Spider-Verse, so they couldn't change stuff to add
Oh.
that in. So that's something to keep in mind. But yeah, man, I don't know. Okay, so now this is an interesting question because Scott, I remember when season 1 came out, and we were talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender. You were all like, "No, this show's better than Avatar: The Last Airbender."
Did I say
Is
that?
it really? You were like,
Did I say that?
At some point, you were hinting at that. So now that, and I was all
First
like, let's
season.
wait, and I was just like, let's wait until the series is finished. So now that the series is finished, how do you feel comparing to Avatar: The Last Airbender?
First off, I need a proof that I actually said that exact statement. If I implied that,
Okay, you implied it. That's how I felt. I felt you're on the road where it's like, come on, don't even like. I was trying not to compare it. Like, come on, let's compare it. We know this is better.
I have a fun comparison. What do you think was better, this final season of Arcane or the final season of Korra?
I'm
the fact
gonna
that
be
we have
honest.
to think about it
I'm
is
gonna be honest with you.
crazy.
Let's be honest with it.
Stop.
Sorry.
No,
There's
no.
no
Control it,
comparison.
control it,
There's no
control it.
comparison. This is better than the final
This
season.
is
of Korra.
absolutely better than
Yeah,
it is.
like okay.
But you had to think about it. That
I
was
know
interesting.
I know that we kind of got off on like listing all of the like minute gripes that we have with it. This season was amazing. Like let's stop. Like as far as like the animation of everything, the story was still good. It landed relatively well. Yeah, there are some issues, but like no, you're not gonna sit here and start comparing it to
Sorry,
Korra.
y'all.
I know.
Like,
Korra's not a fair
relax.
comparison.
It's
Sorry.
The question was about Avatar. We haven't talked about Avatar.
Okay, we don't have to.
good
We don't have to
one.
talk about that. Actually,
It's
I think you
not-
summed it up. I just thought it'd be kind of fun.
I can give my real quick answers. Firstly, Arcane's definitely overall, like animation wise and story wise, it's more refined than Avatar season 1 for sure. But as a story as a whole, I still like Avatar better.
Amen.
As
Sure.
a story as a whole. And
I think that's
for Korra
Echoes
season,
for
the
everyone.
last season in comparison, when you asked that, I was thinking which season was the last one. That's why I needed time.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. Okay.
I wasn't about to actually like say that it was
Cool. I think it's okay.
all
I
the
think
seasons.
OC
It's
said
better
it
than
straight.
all the
Okay.
seasons. Like, come on.
All right. I just thought, okay.
Like,
It's just kind of funny.
It's not perfect, right? Like we did have that conversation back then of like, oh, is this at the level of Avatar? And like quality wise, it probably is, but like now there have been some shortcomings. It's not as good, in my opinion, as Avatar: The Last Airbender. But hey, we're comparing it to the best animated show ever.
That's
so it's
fair.
like,
That's fair.
come
That's
on.
fair. That's fair. And that's the
It's-
reason why I'm comparing it, because
It's-
at the time I was like, I've never felt something like this. Until
Yeah, no,
Avatar
fair.
was. So that was the reason why I compared it. But now that we have a season 2,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's apples and oranges. Okay, let's move on to the next thing, I feel like, because I have a question.
for sure.
What would you need like promised to you to come back and watch any of these spin-off projects?
I'm
What would you
watching
need to
them.
see? You're just gonna watch them?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
think
okay.
I don't think I'm against it. Like, I don't think it's
Yeah, it's
it's
not
that
like there's
bad.
like a lot of stuff that's even on the same level as it, so it's like might as well.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
yeah, I'm a fan
Like,
of
and, like
yeah.
what has come out since season 1 of Arcane that has been like at the level of Arcane?
That's not anime, right? It's
Blue-Eyed Samurai.
American
Animated.
Well, Blue-Eyed Samurai is pretty. I feel.
Okay, we'll say
I was
Blue Eyes-
slight. I'll give it to Arcane
We'll
season
just
1 a little bit
mention
better.
Blue-Eyed
Little bit,
Samurai.
But Blue-Eyed Samurai is
Okay.
definitely there. It's close.
Anything else in the 2 years since the first season?
well, we don't watch everything that comes out, right?
We don't, but like, hopefully we're watching the best stuff that,
For sure.
Yeah,
that is
okay.
being released.
Yeah, point made. And
Right.
I think people too, like, they do have, like I said, because the first season was so character driven, people have already had their attachments to like certain
Yeah.
characters, and they want to see, I guess, because like a lot of us are disappointed with certain conclusions, I think that will keep us coming back to see if there's like a new project with our favorite. And Fortiche has like their own fans now because of like how beautiful and visually stunning this project was. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense that we're all going to tune into the new projects.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, I'll watch it.
But is anyone going to play League?
No.
No.
No,
Resounding
I'm
no.
Could be into League.
Yeah.
Like, don't get crazy.
I'm curious about your guys' opinion about the Jace and Victor storyline, because I know some of you guys said it was like really well done and
Whoa.
good ending, right?
The ending was beautiful. That part made me cry.
Yeah.
I cried.
That was very beautiful. But
Yeah, I thought the scene itself was beautiful, but
However-
a part of me like thinks like, okay, when Jace tried to kill Victor, like that sort of takes away a little bit from like the ending, because he was like, oh, you're always my partner, blah blah blah. I'm like, wait, 3 episodes ago you tried to blast him.
But wait, didn't they
No, to be
explain that
fair-
because future Victor told him to
yeah,
do that?
exactly.
Yeah.
That was the thing.
He's
but future Victor told him to blast him.
Yeah.
yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you wanted to kill me. You said kill me.
It's like you need to end
You
this
need
because
to
you're the only
blast
one,
Exactly.
you know, who can
Exactly.
do this.
So
No,
yeah,
I
But-
think
but why did Jace change his mind then? Like why is like
Maybe he said shoot to maim, not to kill. Okay, but you bring up a good point, Scott. That it kind of ties into what I was saying, where it's like the time travel stuff is still a little unclear to me, because it
Yeah.
sounds like this conclusion with them, the beautiful one, is like a singularity that ended the cycle, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a little unclear.
it's
and
because of Echo.
it is
Yeah,
because of
obviously.
Echo, yeah. But
That
yeah, you
should
bring
not
up a
be.
good point. It's just another one of those
Exactly.
things where it's like
Exactly.
where there are some choices that are like kind of like weird with the
Exactly.
storytelling.
Also
like you bring up, that's a
predictable.
good point.
Like, I knew that was future Chase. I mean, not Chase, Victor. When I was like, oh, it's him in the future, isn't it?
Yeah,
I
I
called
didn't
it
think
out.
that. I didn't think that.
I called
Yeah,
it.
I was
There's a lot of things that
I
were
started
predictable.
I started to call it I was piecing it together
Yeah,
too.
I was like-
But it wasn't like in a bad way. I was like, whoa, this is kind of cool, because
Yeah.
it's like it was really well written in the way that they were like two sides of the same coin. They even said that, right? And at the end, this is something I said. I think that Jace and Victor are like the pathos and logos of the series, of their story actually. Interchangeably though, because they started to have like really like similar stories, and then they're kind of like together, like trying to get to like an ethos, like the ethics of it all.
That's
And then
interesting way.
and then they do, you know, kind of like figure out, oh, like love is the answer and whatnot, you know. So, and like freedom of choice. But they kind of had to have those interchangeable, like, kind of trouble like figuring out the ethics of things and the logic versus the emotion, right? Like, oh, it was affection that kept us together, and like, you know, like denying that later. So I think that part was like really ingenious to me. But yeah, some of the like more like technical aspects of like time travel left a lot to be desired. For sure.
I just really love that line that Victor says at the end, which is like, "There's no prize to perfection, just the end of pursuit."
Just the end of pursuit.
That was like,
Victor
really
had like
got
some
me.
of the best lines of the series. I think maybe whoever wrote Victor, they kept on. But because like, remember, I love the first season too. He said one of my favorite lines where it's like, "If you're going to change the world, don't ask for permission." I thought that was like such a fun line. And then he had one of the heaviest lines in this last
that really got to
season.
me.
His character design was really cool too, like when he was like almost like a celestial being.
Exactly.
I thought that was very like almost like classical art looking.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. I love all those things, yeah, for sure. But the part that I don't know is like,
Why did he kill him? Or try to kill him?
the logical steps
Yeah.
of
Yeah,
the
leading
story,
to it,
like
yeah.
leading to it, just
It
there's-
takes a lot of leaps. Yeah.
there's still some things there that feel a little off. It's like, you know, at a certain point when they were fighting, Jace was like, okay, there's got to be some part of Victor still in there, right? Like he said that, but I'm like, wait, you're the one who blasted the part.
Because he was told to do that.
I know he was told to do that, but why didn't they have a conversation at least, or like a longer one, or at least like, you know, try to.
It seemed to me like he had been there before in that moment. Like everything leading up to their final moments kind of already happened and had to happen is what I got from it.
Sure, but like it still felt weird when certain lines were said.
Fair.
You know? Like I just felt like if that's how you feel, if that's what you actually like mean, then why did you blast him?
I think that was a style choice too. I think they wanted like a cliffhanger for one episode.
Exactly. That's what I feel like it's mostly.
Yeah, no,
it's,
it's like we said, like some of the decisions, some of the storytelling is contrived.
it's mostly the beats, the story beats. They wanted to end it
Okay.
for Act 2 to make it like a surprise and everything.
I mean, yeah, it was like you said, it was like cool to see, but then also in the context of the timing of what was happening outside too, like it felt off. Like now that I
Yeah.
really look at like the
But
bigger
I
picture.
I still think the way it ended with
Yeah.
it made me feel like a lot, you know. I was like, I love this,
it was
but at the same
cool.
time, there's some logical
Yeah,
thing about it.
It's certain things. I think in the beginning, in the first season, it was a good balance of style and substance. I think this last season, because they knew like they had less time, it's a lot of style over substance this time around. I feel like.
But I feel like for the most part, everything that happened, the story beats and the story on paper sounds really good. But I just feel like the last 2 episodes were rushed it really fast.
Yeah, and it's like
Other
you know,
than Jinx dying,
Yeah.
that I didn't like that.
and yeah, that sucked. And a big like overarching thing is like the classism and like the class warfare between
Yes, that's
like,
a huge thing actually.
Zahn and Piltover, and it's like, and that was resolved with a war that I guess some people can say like, oh, it's because war is pointless, that's the reason, but it's like to involve like Zahnites and like the people that were like under Piltover's boot the whole time, and now it's like, oh, we'll fight for
Actually,
like what?
That's one of my biggest issues.
Yeah.
That I didn't mention it in my little video, but
Perfect. New here.
yeah, but I wrote it in the comments afterwards because I was like, well, what is this like? Something feels off. It's the fact that a lot of the story in Arcane in general is between Zahn and Piltover and their
Exactly.
conflict.
Exactly.
And the way it ended and the way it was resolved was not good. It felt like it was just sidelined for a new story.
It
Yeah.
feels insensitive too, because it's kind of a big thing to cover classism like that,
Yeah.
right? And like, you know, obviously everyone in the Undercity and like in Zahn is like super underprivileged, right? And it causes like pretty much all of the conflict in the first season, right? That was like a big deal, and the even like Vander and Silco's story, like that was the biggest thing, was the inequality.
Yeah.
Like it hangs over everyone's heads. And then in this season, it's almost like an afterthought. And
To be fair, I actually want to bring this point, because whenever fantasy shows have ever done these like, you know, political conflicts, they've never satisfyingly
It's not that
resolved
good.
it. It's always something
That's a good
the giant
observation.
monster
Yeah.
comes in, we destroy the giant monster, and then we realize because there's a problem bigger than all of us, we should all just hold hands. That's usually how it's always solved.
Well, okay.
So
Is there anything to be said about when Echo had his own like side adventure in the alternate dimension, and the way that the Zahn and Piltover relations was expressed in that world as like this is a best case scenario for how
Like Vi dying.
right no but like
that's
the moral of the
that's the
story.
catalyst that
Again,
the fact that like
poor Vi.
the fact that like this is an alternate like reality of like
Okay.
how things could be, and we end this season with Savika,
Yeah.
the one-armed
On the
lady
council.
on the council. Could that be like, hey, we're kind of going in the direction of this kind of ideal
Yeah.
world that Echo saw, or do
I don't
we
know.
think that like
Is there
how do
anything
we-
that can be said?
how do we feel? But like when you say that they didn't resolve it, like what are we looking for?
Okay,
exactly?
well, my question to that is like it's almost similar to like Legend of Korra, where it's like, okay, we had these problems with stuff, and then they're like, oh, we solved it by having like, okay, let's take with the whole Amon situation, right? Where it's like, oh, the non-benders are blah blah blah, and then they solve it with the president. They said, oh, now that we have a non-bender president, that solves the whole issue of the
Thanks-
equalists.
thanks,
which
Chiku.
it's still
Yeah.
like, okay, that doesn't like the issue is more deep than just having one person in
Savika
power.
on the council is convenient. Because like, what is one person on a council full of people that hate her still?
Okay, but then
gonna
that would
do?
be. I feel like then that would be a different story, I guess, or like another story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because
but-
I feel like we're
that
already
is the Arcane story.
true. Okay, but then so we're saying that they should have focused more on
Yes.
the
They did
the
in the first
social,
act. They did in the first act for sure.
in the
There-
first act.
This-
What was the first act?
for Zahn when they're like, okay, Silco's gone now. Who's gonna take over? You know.
Mhm, the Chem
Right.
Barons
Yeah.
or the.
and then
And then Jinx becomes the
Jinx
hero of
becoming
Zahn
the hero.
and all that stuff.
Okay.
Like they gave it time in the first act, but like things.
So then
just-
is this all? Are we just saying like, is this just another issue of like them rushing through the season? Because
It could
Yes.
if
be.
they had another season, then they could have. Because we're already talking about like we have the hex tech stuff, we have all of these other aspects, and then that we already feel like it didn't,
Yeah.
fully resolve itself, and then now we're talking about this other thing. So maybe it's, if it just had a longer.
Yeah.
That could have helped.
I think again, it's just another thing of like the story suffers because we had to focus on like a big last battle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, and that's
It's
again,
like just-
it's something that I can't blame Arcane because I've never seen any fantasy show like even
That's
with, like I bring up
interesting.
Naruto, right, where they talk about how are we gonna solve peace? Oh, I know how we're gonna solve peace. We're just gonna mind control everybody.
Even in
And
games.
it's like
Even in
Mind
games
control.
too.
Oh, you.
remember the whole what's it called, the jutsu that's supposed to put everyone in their homes,
Oh.
like basically everyone will be in one conscious.
Oh,
you get
yeah,
my
yeah,
point.
yeah,
You
yeah,
get my
yeah,
point.
yeah,
Where it's like whenever these fantasy
But
shows
that was the
tackle
bad guy's plan. I don't
Is
know.
even
it-
then,
Is
it the
Arcane
bad
just
guy or it's the
Naruto? Because
guy
I
who
saw
thinks
a lot of parallels.
My point is that
Yeah.
whenever we have these shows dealing with these issues of like how do we resolve like a political thing, and then they use supernatural powers, it always ends up with something like extreme like that.
To be
So-
fair, I don't think
yeah.
I don't think that's ever been resolved in real life.
That's the thing. That's the thing. It's
It's
a
like-
so I think it's one of those things where I don't want to fault Arcane completely, but I do think that they were on the right. At least season one, they felt like they're on a right track with something.
Yeah.
I think it's like one of those things where it's like so many stories are similar, and I think it's like easy to fall into certain tropes, which is fine if it's done well and it's written well. It's like there will be no complaints because it's like fun and easy to watch. But when it's not, it is hard to pull off, and it's like when it's so rushed, like some of these tropes do stand out a little more, which is like why we're talking about all of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I wish they
Yeah.
kind of explored how they made the alternate timeline that way. Like just
That's the
because
thing. It's
Vi
like-
died, right?
It seems like it would have taken another season
Exactly.
to just go through
Yeah.
that whole process. No, even just focusing on like getting the relationship between Zahn and Piltover to be like more equitable. That seems like such a long journey, and talking about like resolving that storyline seems like it maybe if we are in the future seasons of whatever this world will be, maybe we'll like revisit Zahn and Piltover and see how things have developed over the years, and like
I mean,
see
I hope
the conflicts.
that's
and
the thing. I think the
resolutions.
complaint is just like we like that stuff and we want to see more of it. Like in Game of Thrones, like some of the coolest stuff was the politics, over the magic, in my opinion.
Exactly.
And it's cool when it's fleshed out because it feels like a little more grounded and it's immersive, and then it's heavier. Like you feel a lot of like tension and there's stakes when you have,
Exactly.
that kind of like classism type story, and it's really like it's kind of like serious subject matter too. So it's like you kind of want to deal with a little bit of sensitivity with
But
that
no,
stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I think that if they had spent maybe season 2 focusing more on like the social aspect of like beginning to normalize relationships between these two worlds, and then season 3 was like the hex tech arcane actual
Then-
like celestial,
Then it truly would be the GOAT of all
that
time.
might
Yeah.
that would have been an
Man,
improvement.
just
Yeah, but-
imagine.
But yeah, because I feel like the setup of the show or season 2 was like there's gonna be a big war between Zahn and Piltover.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what we were all waiting for.
Yeah,
Ah, man.
that was the setup in the first act for sure. But then the second act sort of derailed that and made it like all of a sudden
Yeah.
Ambessa changes sides. All of a sudden there's like a whole bunch of conflict between different forces now. The Black Rose is introduced. It just gets so messy. And it loses sight of like the initial story of season 1 and the first act.
So are we
Yeah.
calling Caitlyn a little pussy because she didn't go all out in fighting Zahn?
I think
She did a lot to Zahn already. I don't
Really,
know
she
what
didn't do
else.
enough.
No, that's not what we're saying. Like
I
she,
think that-
she did a lot already.
that arc where she became like the leader of Piltover to a certain extent, it felt kind of like it climaxed to her being elected, I guess, or just like, you know, they decided that she was the leader primarily because of
It wasn't
Ambessa.
really elected. I think it was kind of like Ambessa's.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Ambessa,
basically.
yeah.
She
Yeah.
did.
Not elected, but like
I will
crowned
make
in a
you
way.
my
Yeah.
instrument. That's what she said.
Yeah, but nothing huge came out of that. It felt like that didn't have to happen, and the same things would have happened.
Fair.
Like, because all she did with that power is create her weapon and then go look for Jinx. And she was already doing that, basically. She already wanted to do that, so nothing really changed.
Yeah, fair.
I felt like it was just it was supposed to be a plot twist in part 3 where it's like, oh, she's the one who gets elected. Dun dun dun.
Yeah.
Crowned, I think crowned.
Sorry, not part 3, part 1, because it ended in part 1 when she got crowned.
Yeah, it felt like a good story beat,
Yeah.
and I was like, yo.
Yeah, me
what-
too.
what
I
is
was
she gonna
like,
do?
oh snap, me too. I was surprised.
But like they kind of sacrifice. They're doing that for like this story beat, which is cool. But then they don't pay it off.
They like nerfed the story,
Yeah,
kind of, if anything.
That's like one of my
Yeah.
gripes. But
If they-
again, like it was still a great season.
And that would have been a cool thing to play into the whole classism of it all too, because it's like Caitlyn is a woman grieving, but everybody in Zahn has like deaths, right? People that they're grieving all the time, and then kind of playing that up and like exploring like the ethos of that would have been cool, but they didn't have time to do that because and just made Caitlyn look really, really bad. But I don't know, because we didn't get a chance to like let that grief play out and let that whole storyline settle. Like it was just another thing that, again, was affected by the rushing of it all.
So I am curious about like what it is about Vi's death that made that world.
You know, honestly, that's so big.
I don't want to
Like,
think it's Vi's death either. It's just that they made it seem like that, and that
well,
sucks.
there's two things. Vi's death, which caused them not to create Hex Tech.
Right.
Not creating Hex Tech had a big factor in it. So I guess you can't create those like crazy
Yeah.
weapons. Like
We can we can almost assume like Jace and Victor are dead too.
they weren't there. Yeah, you're right.
Jace tried to kill himself. Maybe he did, or maybe he died in the explosion too. We don't know. And Victor, without Hex Tech, low key was like
On his way
dying on his deathbed. So they could all have been dead.
So it's Jace's and Victor's fault.
Moral of the
I
story,
mean,
it makes sense.
The whole Arcane part, like plot, kind of starts and ends with them, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
That's what. So yeah, I mean, the idealistic, optimal way to look at it is that like now they're on their path to that world. At the end of season 2 of Arcane, but you know, there's no way to know that for sure.
Yeah, there's like just a lot of questions still about it all.
But why would Jace? Yeah, why would Hex Tech being missing like create that wonderful world for them so easily? You know, like that's still part of the question that's missing.
It's like a world without super weapons of mass destruction, I guess, but they still made their own version of it, Heimerdinger and Echo. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, Scott.
Oh, maybe without those things. No, I don't know.
Piltover bad. No, I don't know. See,
Like, how would the Vander and Silco conflict resolve? You know what I mean? Like, because that was still going on.
Well, I think that he would have found the note at some point.
Maybe. It's like Vi's gone. We gotta go back there.
Yeah.
Yeah. What the hell? Sure.
And then he's like, oh no, you are my friend.
Wow.
You know?
Beautiful.
I'm sure there's gonna be like videos out there that are like theorizing
know.
like how would
That
this
episode was fan fiction, y'all. There's no way all that good stuff was happening. Man.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, if that's our thoughts. then-
Yeah. And then again, I feel like we always like talk about some of our favorite stuff like this. The reason we're so critical is because we love it.
Yep.
And we want to see we just want to see things that we love get better and better, which
Exactly.
I'm feeling positive that it could,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still think it's like some of the best animations, some of the
For
best
sure.
like
Oh
For
yeah.
feeling that I get while I'm watching, right?
Yeah.
It's like
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
into this. This is great.
Yeah, shouts out to everyone involved in the project
For
for
sure.
putting it together because it's still
Definitely.
a
It's
pleasure to
beautiful.
see.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody else get like flashbacks of Treasure Planet when Echo's like writing on his
Yeah. There's
On
I
his
feel like
skateboard.
there's a lot of like little Easter eggs where I feel like, oh, I can kind of tell like what inspired this, which I
Yeah.
love, you
Yeah.
know,
I love
like
Treasure Planet.
yeah, I love Treasure Planet.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
Such-
still waiting for a live action Treasure Planet.
I don't think that's gonna happen.
It's so ridiculous. It's
Do
sad.
we want to see that?
I would.
You know who would be a really good? What was his name? Hawkins.
Jim Hawkins.
The Robbie from Cobra Kai.
Oh my god.
He'd be really good.
I would
That
perfectly be
is a
down.
great fan cast. That's really good, OC.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Anyway,
that's
Yeah.
so that concludes our review of Arcane season 2.
yes.
Let us know your thoughts down below in the comments. Overall, like we said, we really love the show. We just criticize it because we love it. But we're hoping to see more and probably talk about it again once it comes out.
Exactly.
Yeah. So see
But
y'all
until
soon.
then, we'll catch you guys in the next one.
All right.
Peace.
Peace.